is Lillian.
My name is Gee-Wey.
And today we're here to share with you the story of our journey from London to Taiwan and the obstacles we encountered to finally making it to Taipei. To give you a bit of context, in October of 2019, we moved to London after living in New York for a number of years. Then from October to March, we lived in London. Gee-Wey did a coding boot camp while I took some time off. And in March, at the peak of COVID, we decided to leave London and go to Taiwan. When COVID hit Europe, everything hit us also sort of very quickly. In early February, we were actually in Venice and everything was normal. But then just 2 weeks later, after we came back, Italy shut down. Very quickly, a bunch of other European countries also started to shut down. And with all the uncertainty and the travel restrictions, we realized we really couldn't afford to be stuck in Europe. Then came Boris Johnson's speech on March 12th, when he famously announced UK's herd immunity policy, which was to let as many people catch the virus as possible so the country could have immunity. That just seemed crazy to us. There was no way the hospitals could handle that many people if everyone was to get sick. And Boris Johnson even said that to get immunity, many families would have to lose their loved ones before their time, which was bizarre. And so we thought, okay, time to leave the UK. And so we started looking at options and, thinking about the cost of healthcare, visas, and where our family was. We decided that our most realistic options were either to go back to the US or to come to Taiwan. We had friends and family in both places. But in the US, because we didn't have healthcare and medical costs are extremely high, if we were to get sick, it wouldn't be a good idea. Also, the country didn't seem to be taking the virus very seriously at the time. Then there was Taiwan, where healthcare costs are very affordable, even for foreigners. I'm a citizen and he's not. That's important later. And plus, the country was really taking the virus seriously, and so were its people. It seemed like the best option. So we started to look at flights, and to our surprise, flight prices to Taiwan had actually tripled the day after Boris Johnson's speech and was literally selling out by the minute. So we quickly hustled a bunch of logistics and decided to buy a flight leaving London in a week's time on March 20th. And finally, we had a plan. But just 2 days before that, on March 18th, something unexpected happened.
So on March 18th, I woke up at 6 a.m. to go buy hand sanitizer, which had been selling out all around us in London, when I saw this message as I was getting out from my friend in New York. Hey, Taiwan just passed a travel ban. Are you going to be okay for your flight? So this was my oh shit moment number one of the day. So I woke up Lillian, who had also gotten a ton of messages from her parents in Taiwan. And it seemed the ban would only allow for Taiwan citizens, which I am not one, to go into the country, which meant also that our plan to travel together 2 days later was not looking good. With the difference in time zones, that meant that I had to be on a plane in the air by 4 p.m. out of London, and so we had to figure out something fast. While I went to go get hand sanitizer, Lillian and our parents came up with a plan. I would go to the London Taiwan consulate and request for a special permit, which I may be eligible for because my parents are citizens, and I might be granted one so I'm allowed into Taiwan. Great. We collected documents, rushed to the consulate, and we tried everything we could, but it didn't work. We were rejected. So by this point, that meant to make it into Taiwan, I needed to be in the air in the next 7 hours, and that was my oh shit moment number two. I needed to go home, I needed to buy a flight, I needed to pack, I needed to get to the airport, I needed to make it on the plane. Fantastic. So immediately outside of the consulate, I bought the last possible flight leaving London to Taipei with a transfer in Bangkok. Then I rushed home. I had 30 minutes. I threw everything I could in 2 suitcases, and then I rushed out to the airport. 14 hours later, made it to Bangkok. Flight was great. I got off the plane, saw that I had 3 hours for the transfer, and that shouldn't be a problem. So then passed through security, had to go for the transfer at the airline counter, and finally got up to the front. And then the airline refused to give me my boarding pass. And they told me that I had 2 options. They said, you can leave the airport or you can fly elsewhere. And this was my oh shit moment number 3. So I started showing them the official documents I had with the ban proving that actually should be allowed into the country despite the transfer. Also, I even asked for a supervisor. I spoke to 5 people. Every time it was a no. I was pretty desperate, but at this point there was 2 hours and there's no way I was going to back down. And the airline told me, "Sir, there's 50 people in line behind you. You need to please step aside. And look, if you want to make it to the plane, the only way we can let you on board is if the Taiwan consulate in Bangkok vouches for you." Okay, so they gave me the number to the Bangkok consulate. I called, and I was unable to reach anyone. So by this point, I knew I needed to do something else. I knew I needed help. So I tried Lillian to update her on the situation. Time zone difference, she was asleep, no problem. Reached out to her dad in Taiwan and managed to get him. We started calling down all these Taiwan numbers in Bangkok, and somehow, miraculously, we reached the official emergency contact of the Taiwan consulate in Bangkok, who then spoke to the airline and convinced them to escalate my case. An hour went by. It was just me, the airline employee, and I was just unsure of what was going to happen. I even texted a friend in San Francisco just in case I got turned away and needed somewhere else to stay. And then a couple minutes later, the airline employee got a phone call, looked up at me, said, "Sir, can I see your passport?" I handed over, and she handed it back to me with a boarding pass.
Yay.
No apologies, nothing, and that was it. The flight was actually in final boarding, and so I sprinted over to the gate, looked up at the sign, make sure I was at the right place, and I saw, this has previously been delayed by an hour and a half. And that was my oh shit moment number 4. Turns out I should have missed the flight, but instead, I was sitting in the window seat with a whole row to myself on the plane. I got to Taiwan, I passed through Taiwan immigration, and I was in the country. That was it.
Yay! And in the meantime, I was in London still, asleep. Sorry. And 2 days later, it was my turn. So my flight was a completely different experience. I had a direct flight, and by that point, it was only Taiwanese people allowed on the plane. And it was fully packed, completely sold out. And on the flight, everybody was wearing a mask. Some even brought extra masks to share with others. People wore gloves, goggles, hazmat suits, raincoats, you name it. And as for the flight itself, it was one of the most quiet and peaceful flights I've ever been on. People were very quiet, no one chit-chatted, there was no babies crying, and there was no one stretching or walking around in the aisles. People were very nervous, and a lot of people mostly didn't even eat. The flight attendants could come by, and instead of saying chicken or beef, they would ask, "Would you like to eat?" And the mood was pretty somber until we were about to land, and the pilot started to announce that everybody were now landing in Taipei. There was this overwhelming sense of relief. You know, everyone had gone through so much stress and anxiety and even fear to prepare to get on that flight and to leave the UK, that everyone was so happy that we were finally here and that we were finally reaching safety. And then we arrived, and it was great. Went through Taiwan's great quarantine system, where within an hour of just getting home from the airport, I received a call from the local team to check if I was okay. They even offered to take out my trash every day if I needed to, which was a very real quarantine problem I had never thought of before. And the next day, a real life person came by, dropped off a care package with masks, with snacks, and all sorts of goodies. And now we're out. Taiwan is pretty normal. There's no lockdown. People go to work. People go to school. Everybody's wearing a mask. Life goes on, just a little bit slower.
So for us, this was maybe 1% of a real refugee experience, in that we had to leave our homes quickly because of an impending threat. We had to pack up our lives in a few suitcases, and there was a number of obstacles along the way. But had any one thing gone wrong, we probably wouldn't have made it. For example, if that flight in Bangkok wasn't delayed by an hour and a half, I certainly wouldn't be in Taiwan. We've also reflected on the fact that how important it was to be persistent and very decisive. If in Bangkok I didn't advocate for myself and kept standing up for myself, the airline staff couldn't have taken me seriously, as seriously as they did, and probably would have turned me away.
Yeah, and we also realized the importance of really being connected to our friends and family as well, because they were the ones that warned us in time, provided us help in real time, and arranged for sort of the shelter and support that we needed all the way from London to Taipei. And now that we're safe, we really realize how incredibly lucky we have been in this situation, and it wouldn't have been possible without the help of our friends and family. So that's our story. Thanks so much for listening to us. We know many of you probably had your own COVID experiences as well. So we appreciate your time and hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and make sure to thank those who helped you along the way as well. Thank you.